3, 2. Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm Joy Limnackern here with Gurveer Dinza.
Hello.
Thanks for being with us, Gurveer. So you have a really interesting story that you're about to share with everybody.
Might get a lot of people talking, so I'm going to start off by asking you a question, Joy.
I'm
okay?
afraid it's something I can't answer at work.
So here's the deal. It's about work.
Yeah.
So when you're on vacation, do you check your work emails, answer work phone calls, feel like you're obligated to stay connected to work?
To some extent, yeah.
To some extent.
Mm-hmm.
How come?
I might feel guilty or worried I'm going to get in trouble or drop the ball on something. What about you?
I try not to, but I've been guilty of the same thing, probably for some of those same reasons. You know, we're in the news business, you think you might miss something, blah, blah. But I think a lot of it, too, is like people making sure their jobs are safe.
Yeah,
Like even
definitely.
they're on vacation, they just feel obligated to be connected to work. So, as you well know, where's your mom from? The Philippines?
That's right.
The Philippines. Like the Philippines and other countries around the world do a much better job of finding a balance,
Yeah.
a work-life balance. Okay,
Yeah.
so there is a lawmaker in California who has come up with something that is called the let me make sure I get this right. It is
I think it's
basically the disconnect bill.
I think it's the right to disconnect.
The right to disconnect bill, that's right, for workers. He's basically saying there needs to be a law on the books that says that you as a worker, when you disconnect, you disconnect. You are not required to check work emails. You do not have to answer work phone calls, that a vacation and your time off is actually your vacation. So here's kind of a deeper dive into what this bill is. And by the way, before we get to it, I will tell you.
We all have our cell phones on us 24 hours.
Laws on the books, and that is the Philippines, okay?
Ooh.
Canada, Australia, and France.
Wow.
So there you go. So
That
check it out.
Day, and that can lead to pressure to respond to each call and text. But this new potential law would make it so that if you see your boss's name pop up on your phone, you don't have to respond.
With technology making connection easier than ever, it also makes it more difficult to disconnect. A new bill would give employees the right to disconnect.
It should be optional, right? An employee ought to have the opportunity to choose whether or not to answer that call.
Tony Rochelle works in real estate, but he's also a family man. He says he's had many bosses over the years. Some respected his time off, others didn't.
Sometimes I won't even answer the phone. And that's an option, that's a choice that I have, right? It's a choice that other people have. There may be consequences with that choice.
The law aims to eliminate those consequences. It would require both public and private employers to create a workplace policy that allows employees to ignore employers during their time off. Non-working hours would need to be established by a written agreement. If there is a violation, employees could file a complaint with the California Labor Commissioner, which would be punishable by a fine. Rochelle says he does have some concerns for smaller employers.
But small businesses could be hamstrung if an employee is not able to, not able to answer the phone, or if an owner says, hey, I can't call this person because I might get in trouble, it might hamstring that business for one reason or another.
But California State Assembly member Matt Haney, who proposed the legislation, says there's a workaround for all employers.
They just need to have a policy on it about when people are working and when they're not. It shouldn't be that hard. The problem right now is the murkiness and the gray area that can leave people feeling like they have to be on 24/7. If an employee consents to be working late hours and available all the time, have them sign on to that in their employee contract.
He says employers can have a policy about what would constitute an emergency call off of the clock. Rochelle says he would want to help his employer if he could.
But I always balance that with the prudence of, one, it's my job and I want to attend to that. Two, I'm real big on being a team player. And so being able to kind of contribute to my team matters to me.
This bill has not been signed into law yet, but Haney says his big goal with this legislation is to help avoid burnout.
And I think the bill's gotten a lot of support so far. So I want to talk about now a story out of Georgia State University. They're actually, what many people say, they're throwing away a key that was helping inmates turn their lives around. So they're actually cutting a program that sets inmates up for a degree after their time served. Atlanta News First Tori Cooper spoke to a former inmate who said that the program gave him a second chance.
On any given day, you might see Kevon Hickman looking at life through his camera lens.
I found a love for science, I found a love for math, but when I picked up the camera and I saw the love that I had for that and the amount of things that I could do with it, it just felt like it was perfect for me.
The ambitious Georgia State junior is majoring in film and is looking forward to graduating. But the road to success wasn't always in his viewfinder. At age 16, he was charged with armed robbery and aggravated assault after robbing someone with the wrong crowd.
So when you were in prison, did you learn that people can change, and would you say you're a product of why it's important to still invest in people?
Absolutely.
Even though his mistake cost him 3 years behind bars, during that time, he got his GED, scored high on his ACT, and eventually started taking college classes at Georgia State while he was incarcerated.
Studies do show that recidivism rates drop substantially when people have education.
GSU political science and philosophy professor Dr. Lindsay started the prison education program at GSU in 2016. But now, GSU says it's cutting the program's funding. In a statement, GSU said in part, it regretfully faced budget cuts and the program would cost more than $180,000 to continue. It also requires more resources than the school says it has. But Kevon says he doesn't understand why the university can't see what he sees.
This has done so much for my life. Not only has it affected me, but it's affected my family. If they could see the positive things, every aspect of my life and how it's changed, I just truly don't understand why they would want to do that.
And thanks so much to Tori Cooper for that report. I want to talk about now the issue of healthcare. Many people say there's actually a healthcare desert in the southern part of Fulton County, South Fulton County. There are actually 0 hospitals south of I-20. But there is an effort underway now to change that. My colleague, Atlanta News First reporter Patrick Quinn, has that story.
Closed signs outside of what was the last standing hospital south of I-20 in Atlanta. The Atlanta Medical Center South ER closed in 2022, and the urgent care clinic here closed earlier this year.
In South Fulton County, we have a healthcare desert, and more specifically, we have an emergency care desert.
Fulton County Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr. just announced a town hall in mid-April to address the healthcare inequity, where a 2023 report by the Morehouse School of Medicine found that there are 0 pulmonologists, 0 cardiologists, and 0 infectious disease specialists in South Fulton County. We went into the neighborhood in East Point. Residents like Linda Davidson told me the biggest need is an ER.
I'm worried that there wouldn't be care close enough to, to save my life if I were to have a stroke or cut my finger working in the yard. That's the problem, is there's nothing close by.
And when a life or limb are on the line, minutes matter.
I know how expensive it is to run a hospital, which is why it's really disappointing that healthcare these days is so monetized, it's so commercial, it's so for-profit.
Commissioner Arrington told me the county must find the dollars within their $1.6 billion budget to meet this need.
One of the options that we're talking about now would be a standalone emergency room. The provider that we're talking to has stated that they would only need about 50% of that for capital contribution, and that they would not need any ongoing support for operational expenses.
That's just one option. Arrington knows South Fulton County needs long-term health care solutions, and soon.
We're talking about emergency care. It's an emergency by definition, right? And so we need all hands on deck to help solve this issue.
Thanks so much to Patrick Quinn for that report. Obviously, we're going to keep following that story. For a moment, though, I want to turn to something else. Look at this. You probably know this scene very well. You've seen it In the famous Walking Dead shot in season 1 of the show, and in plenty of other Hollywood productions, Atlanta's Jackson Street Bridge. And there is a plan to fix some of the issues. People say, it's a great view of the skyline. And that's why many people stop there. Some people who walk, cycle, or drive on the bridge do have some concerns. They say it can get a little bit dangerous, especially when other people are actually trying to come and stop and see the view. So there is a plan to fix that. The Department of City Planning has their eye on the bridge. In fact, Atlanta City Council member Liliana Bakhtari has put up some of her district funds for this project. Bridget Spencer has more.
You can see it in the famous Walking Dead shot and plenty of other Hollywood productions. Atlanta's Jackson Street Bridge.
I can see why people would stop here because it's a great view of the skyline.
But people who walk, bike, or drive on the bridge do have some concerns.
It can get a little bit dangerous as well, especially when other people are actually trying to come and stop here and see the view.
There's a plan in the works to fix this. The Department of City Planning has their eye on it. In fact, Councilmember Liliana Bakhtari put up some of her district funds for the project.
This is going to be part of a package with the Edgewood Avenue restriping and bicycle lane. So Councilmember Faroki and I both put $100,000 towards that project each. And then I put $300,000 towards the Jackson Street Bridge.
The plan reconfigures the traffic pattern along the bridge, creating a more pedestrian and bike-friendly environment.
A protected cycle track. We're not talking flex posts, but actual divisions, and everything we can to ensure that bicyclists and pedestrians are protected from cars.
This is a big effort from the city as they're working to add protected bike lanes on Edgewood as well. A protected lane is something many cyclists would appreciate.
I know there's a bit of a bike lane right here, but it would be much nicer to be able to know that it was in like a protected lane.
The bridge is an Atlanta symbol that tourists and locals love.
I've had friends married on that bridge. So that spot is one that people want to go to symbolize their love and like the iconic Atlanta backdrop.
Bridget Spencer, Atlanta News First.
As we follow that, you can follow the latest on our free Atlanta News First mobile news app.